Hi everyone, welcome to another episode. In this episode, we will discuss views. And views, this is a really simple, really useful concept because a view in a database is nothing else. It is just a query that you have saved with a particular name. So basically a view is just a saved query and it's really executed like this, right? So if you have ever created like a complex query and you just wanted to save it and do it like in a database and not in an SQL file somewhere on your drive, this is the way to go, and you should create a view. And you create it, it is very simple. Let's say we want to select everyone from people table, right? Let's select everyone from Germany, where country equals not minus Germany. And here we have everyone from Germany. And now if we wanted to save this, but what is important is not save the results, but save this piece of script here. So we would say create view, and so now we need to put a name here. So let's say people Germany, and then you say as, and then you just execute it, and you have here view people Germany created. So if we open the views here, now we can see people Germany. And what is important, right, is here I did a star. So as you already know, a star returns all the rows that a particular table has. And this was the same in this case, right? So all rows were returned. And now you can just query the view by doing select star from people Germany. And you run it, and you get the exact same 3 rows that we would if we just run these 3 lines. So basically now we have saved this piece of query inside our view, and we can just select everything from people Germany. Now, what is important is if the contents of the people table change, so the results of this query change, also the results of this query will change. So if we, for example, remove something, right? So let's remove a row, and you remove a row just by saying delete from people where ID equals 1, for example, right? Let's delete the person. So 1 row was deleted. So now if we run this part, we can see that we have 2 rows. If we run this, we will see the exact same 2 rows. The reason for this is how the view works, or how every view works. So we could as well make use of what we have learned, and actually, instead of doing something like this, we could remove this, open close parenthesis, and then inside the parenthesis here, just use a subquery. And this is basically the exact same thing that you had before, right? So a view works just exactly the same way as a subquery would. Now, that also a slightly more advanced topic, but actually a topic that I would like to take a look now is something called Materialized View. And at the beginning of the video, I have specifically mentioned that a view is not a saved set of results. So it's not like we are running a query, right? This, and we are saving these results somewhere. We are saving this piece of script, right? So it is like the dynamic. Every time we query the view, the query that is underneath is executed. This is why we will always see what is the current state, right, of the data in the table. But what materialized view is exactly the opposite thing. So now we will save the result of the query. So if you want to run a query today, right, and you want to see how something changed in the next months, weeks, whatever, you can use a materialized view to do this. So basically you will save the results, and then you can come back to them anytime you want. This is essentially like creating a table and then inserting the results there with the added feature that usually it is easier to refresh. And now here I need to make a general remark. This topic is, as it is a little bit more advanced, is not as standardized among different database management systems, right? So Oracle will have it a little bit different, Postgres a little bit different, DB2 a little bit different. This is why will be working with this on Oracle, but some details may be a little bit different on the different database management systems. So always you should refer to the documentation, and also the naming will be sometimes a little bit different. Some DBMSs call it, for example, materialized query tables. But we will be creating this on Oracle. Okay, so let's get started. So just to create a materialized view is super simple. You can say create materialized, if you only can spell, view. Let's say maybe this time people USA as, and basically you do the same thing. Maybe here let's specify the ID, the name, surname, and let's also take cost of living so that we now also use some column selections here. And you can also see here that you can basically use the aliases. So this is the very same in the view up here. I can rename this to cost of living, for example, right? If I wanted to. And you just now execute it, and you'll see that the materialized view people USA has been created. So the same way as we did before, you select everything from people USA, and now you will see the results here. And let's actually run this part only to check if the results are the same. And here you can see that basically the results that we are getting are exactly the same. But what happens now if we remove a row? So let's try to delete from people where ID equals 4. Right? Let's try to run it. So when we remove, when we now select from our materialized view, we can still see the ID 4 here, right? So we can still see the row here. Whereas if we run the query that is underneath it, we don't see the row anymore. So now there we are getting into this a little bit more advanced topic. Okay, so by default, because there are many options of a materialized view, how and when this materialized view is refreshed. So basically in Oracle, and this is important, in Oracle, the default way of when the materialized view is refreshed, it is on demand. So basically it is not refreshed as long as you do not demand it to be refreshed. And you can actually demand it to be refreshed. That's not very difficult. What you have to do is you need to execute a procedure that runs the refresh. So in SQL Developer, what you can alternatively do is you can go here, the left-hand side, you can open the materialized views. So here you now see the view, right? The data that is in the view. And what you can do is you can go down here to refresh option. You can click force refresh now. So these are the two options, the two refresh options that you can choose from. You cannot, unfortunately, without some additional steps. These steps are creating materialized view logs that would be created automatically with the view creation if we specify the certain options. But I would just suggest you select C, which stands for complete, and it means just that Oracle will execute the whole query and insert the results here once again, instead of trying to just perform some incremental changes. So you just click apply. The view has been refreshed. And now, if we refresh this part also, you can see that the ID 4 is gone. Okay, but let's maybe remove one more row, right? So now you can see that basically once again we have the same results right here. And if we execute this part right here, we have the same results. Let's remove one more row, because I would like to actually, instead of going here into the UI, so into basically clicking, because you not always have this opportunity, right? So you not always have the access to SQL Developer. Sometimes maybe you'll be using a different software that does not have the way to do it. What you can do, you can say execute dbms underscore m view dot refresh, open close parenthesis, and now we'll have two arguments here. So basically first one will be the name of our view, people underscore USA, and then the second one will be a method to use. So we'll say C, and you just run it like every other piece of script. You can see that PL/SQL procedure successfully completed. And now once again, here we should not see the 7, and here we should not see the ID 7, which seems to be correct. Okay, so these are our materialized views, and there are a ton of options that you can go through. You can, for example, set up a automatic refresh. For example, they can be refreshed every day. So during the night, that would be, so for example, if you have some report to crunch in the morning, right? And it has some compute intensive operations. You actually need to calculate some averages, group bys, some analytical functions. Therefore, maybe it's a good idea to set up such a materialized view that will refresh during the night when the load on the system is lower, because people are not using the database and are not running other queries. And then it will compute it for you, and you will have it ready in the morning. So the materialized views, once again, something a little bit more advanced. However, I would highly suggest that you take a look here. At least keep in your mind that there is a way, or an easy way, that you can utilize this for your advantage. Okay, but this is it. I would like to actually, now that we just do one more example maybe, because I don't think that we have done that many. So both with a view. So here, let's say just create a view, and here maybe I think that I didn't mention before, you can say or replace, which is very simple, because then it will just overwrite the existing one. And I will just say, let's this time create like a join, right? So let's say people, and then let's say what we had, countries. So people, countries, as select, I would say ID, name, surname, and then from the country table, let's see what we'll select. Let's say maybe select area kilometers squared. Now from people, let's inner join countries. Once again, we need to have our aliases ready, right? So the ID we want from the people table, name from the people table, surname from the people table, and the currency from the area kilometers squared. So from people inner join countries, now we need on p.country equals c.name. Okay, and let's run it. Here you just say create or replace view this way, and the view has been created. Okay, so let's now try to query the view. Let's see what we have there. People, countries. And of course, you can still query the view in a different way, right? So here you can do a left join people once again, right? Why not? On, I don't know. Let's say here PC, and here let's say people. Let's move this to a new line. You can say pc.name equals p.name, right? You can do that, no problem. So we have just joined like a view with the table itself, right? So what we have just done once again is you can always go here, put this query here, and you have to expect basically the same results once again. Okay, so in this fashion, we can also create or replace materialized. You can do a materialized view. With the small little exception that you cannot just replace the materialized view so easily. Okay, here we already can see that the name is existing, so we have to do a drop view, people, countries. You execute it, view has been dropped. So now we can create our materialized view, right? So now we select star from people, countries. And really the difference that I have now, right? So the difference between this, what's happening when I execute this select right now and the select that we had here before, so once it was just a normal view, is that currently no more query was executed, just this one. So we cannot, this does not, so at the moment it will work because the data didn't change, right? But usually you would not expect with a materialized view if you do this, right? So if you replace the view with a subquery, that you get the same results. You can if the data didn't change. However, this is not guaranteed because it's not like this whole query that we have right here is executed where we select something from a view, from a materialized view. This is not the case. So we are really retrieving a result set that has been saved. If this was a normal view, this would be the case, right? So the query will be executed. And this is the difference between a view and a materialized view. But for today's video, that would be it. So we have very briefly went over a view topic and even more briefly over the materialized view topic. These are two examples, or these are two concepts that are very useful, especially the materialized view. This is why I decided to share it with you. And you should definitely read a little bit more about them, create some views on your own, and just see how they work, how they interact. You can join these two together just so that you learn the concept. But from my side, from this video, the most important thing is that you remember what a view is, that basically it is a saved query or with a name, and the materialized view is a saved set of results. And with this information, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next episode.